Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 2 of Spring Cleaning. My name is Sarah. I'm going to be the host for today's episode as well. We're pretty much going to be touching around the concept today of cleaning the cobwebs of our lives. So pretty much the habits that we don't want, the things that we do that we need to stop doing, things that need to be cleaned out. But per usual, we're going to take a moment to stop and introduce our guests today. So guests, you can go ahead, say your name, say what you do, something about yourself.
So I'm Rylee. I'm in 8th grade. Today's my birthday, and I currently play basketball for my school.
Wow. Did you say today's your birthday?
Yes.
Dude, happy birthday. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you for being here, being on the pod with us on your birthday. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I have nothing else to do, so.
Cool.
I'm Lily. I am in 9th grade, and I serve at Kids Crossing, so that's pretty cool.
Love that.
Hi, I'm Kendra. I'm the elementary lead actually here at the Crossing, so I get to teach tiny humans about Jesus all day, which is absolutely incredible, and just be here today with you guys, so I'm excited.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, to start us off, I'm going to go ahead and read from Ephesians. We're going to be reading Ephesians 4:22. And it says, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." I love that scripture so much. It's such a great way to just view ourselves and how to live on a daily basis. And so habits, right, they're these things that stick around, whether good or bad, right? And cobwebs are things that begin to grow when something sits for too long, whether it's created from dust or a spider or something like that. So first question for you guys are, what are some good habits that you feel like you have created in your life?
I'll start. So I think one of my great habits that I've the past couple months I've been wanting to work on more is just starting my day off listening to worship music. Whenever I'm getting ready to school or I'm walking to school, I like to start off just by welcoming God into my day, and it just it makes my day better. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. It absolutely does make your day better. That's so good. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I'll go next. So I've been kind of like she said, waking up with the worship music. I go to school. I do my proactive in the morning, and then I listen to, while I'm doing my work, I listen to Air One.
Nice.
Yeah, I was introduced to that by one of my leaders for
that's
youth.
Awesome.
So
That's really good. That's really cool. What about you, Kendra?
That is super awesome. Listening to worship music changes the trajectory of your thinking throughout the duration of the day. Honestly, just speaking more in a gentle tone. So being slow to anger and quick to forgive. Just in the midst of dealing situations, realizing that I should be the Christ in people's lives. And so just not reacting right away and slowing myself down long enough to analyze the situation and respond in a way that would be pleasing to God. It's probably something I've been trying to put in practice more often.
That's really awesome. I love that because that's such a great habit that's honestly can save you from so much and from saying things you don't want to say or hurting people or whatever. So that's really great. And starting your days off with God, that is always going to be the best thing you can possibly do. I would say for me, a habit I've been trying to do is anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed, instead of trying to operate from that kind of place, I'll stop and either go for a walk or do something I know is going to kind of help me recenter to God. And just seeing kind of the shift that does in me so that I can then go and do all these tasks I have to do and not be super overwhelmed and burnt out at the end of it. Also
solid.
good. But
It's really solid.
So how do you feel like habits get created in your life?
I would say it's either just my mind is just either good or bad. It's just a good thing is me telling myself oh, I want to do this more often because it's either it benefits me or it benefits someone else or even God. So I think that's a way that habits create for me. So
Right.
Yeah.
Having that discipline and being this is good for me. I know it is, so I need to keep at it and make that consistency. That's so good. What about you guys?
I definitely would say, for me, it really just depends. If I'm forming a good habit, I have to be a lot more intentional. And so sometimes that looks like writing a list and just kind of making check marks, setting reminders on my phone just to make sure that it's getting done every night. Oftentimes with bad habits, it's unintentional. It's me not paying attention to something that I probably should be emphasizing more and working at changing. So it really just depends on if I'm forming a good habit or a bad habit.
Right. Yeah, I love that. That honestly just goes like into the whole of like keeping accountability with yourself, like how you said you make lists and all that. Because sometimes with the good habits, like you said, we have to be more intentional and we're probably going to forget some days. So like having some kind of form of like either telling a friend like, hey, this is a habit I'm trying to instill in my life. Like, can you kind of remind me or just make sure I'm keeping, my word with that? So good. What about you, Rylee?
So kind of like you said, asking a friend to help me stay on it, and then like trying to make my life better, because like sometimes, like not sometimes, most of the times, people make fun of me for my acne, even though that's why I've been using my Proactive. I'm trying to work on it, so like making my life better helps.
Yeah.
Keeps the habits flowing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for being honest about that, by the way, too. That's really good. And I feel like, too, like when you're creating habits, like it's not always going to be the easiest thing, the good ones, right? It's going to be like, it's going to take accountability and discipline and all those things.
Right.
But then it's like the good part is you get to this place where those habits, you're doing them so often that they end up becoming a natural thing. So it's like every habit at the beginning, it's kind of weird, it's kind of new. And then the more you do it and you put yourself in that discipline and you hold yourself accountable, like it starts to become something that just naturally flows from you.
They say it's like a 21-day turnaround, right?
I've heard that.
Like 3 weeks or something before something becomes an actual habit in your life.
Right.
Like
I've heard that. And I feel like initially when I hear that, like, oh, it takes 21 days to make a habit, like it kind of overwhelms me because I'm like, man, like I have to do this for 21 days. Like that's kind of crazy. So like for me, like just being like, okay, scratch the 21 days. Like let's just do one day at a time.
Yeah.
So it's like today, I want to do this today. This is something that's going to help me that I want to keep consistent in my life. So let me worry about doing it today. And then tomorrow I can worry about doing it again tomorrow. And then before you know it, you pass those 21 days and you're just kind of doing it without even thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, like the 21 days thing, it kind of like scares me, and like I get mad at myself when I like miss a day, or it's like the concept of the thing that I'm doing, it's just like it gets lost, I think, because I'm like, oh, I didn't do it today, so now everything's like messed up, and it's like not a continuation. So I get like mad at myself about it, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the 21 days helps me because I'm like, not to say that there's an end date to it, but when I have a mental idea that there is an end date to something, I'm like, okay, you only got 10 more days left of this. You only have 9 more days like that. And then it just becomes a habit.
Yeah. No, totally. I totally agree with that. And back to what you were saying, Lily, about like just being hard on yourself. I think as humans, like we can all definitely fall into that so naturally, especially just in society. Like I just feel like there's so many things that are being like pushed on us and pressured on us, and just seeing what people around us are doing. And so that's why the great thing is like that God never puts that pressure on us. And if we, for some reason in those 21 days, like we forget to do it or whatever, like by the grace of God, like we can get back up again and just do it the next day. And it's like, it's not going to ruin the progress we're making or anything. And so even like in building those habits, like the fact that God wants to be a part of everything, big or small, like bringing him into forming those habits and seeing like how forming those habits can be so much easier with God. And when we do mess up and when we do forget, like his grace is there to cover that. Really, really cool. So I would say, what are some habits that you need to fix?
So I'm like a really big procrastinator.
Okay.
So it's like with school or with like projects that I'm working on, like I'm working on it like this semester, because like last semester of school, it was bad. And so like it's kind of hard to fix, but like I'm working on it more and more. But yeah, it's a pretty bad habit of mine.
That's good. Thanks for being honest about that. What about you guys?
Honestly, I overpack my calendar. And so I'm big on like, okay, if you have an event or you have something, like I'm trying to be there and just support that. And I don't think about the reality of the fact that like, okay, I got a full life and I got things I got to do. So just trying to get in the habit of being more intentional, of not always saying yes right away. And looking at the reality of like, okay, you have 3 things on your calendar this week. So maybe don't say yes to anything else this week. And revisit it the next week.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's ultimately going to set you up so that you're not super burnt out by the end of it, right? That's super good. What about you, Rylee? What would you say is a habit that you need to fix?
Well, like sometimes I forget being a leader is more important than being a follower. So sometimes, like at my school, there's bigger people and they just overpower me in ways that I just don't know how to handle it. So I just end up following and then being more rude than kind. And I try to work on that, but it just gets harder sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. That's honestly going to be a great habit that's not just going to help you, but it's going to help the people around you too, which is really cool because like when God has a calling on your life and, you know, he's put great things in your character and who you are, like when you choose to be that leader instead of a follower, like you're going to be helping so many people that like need to be led by God, you know, ultimately. So that's really, really good. I would say for me, a habit I'm trying to fix right now is being quick to isolate myself because that's something I do so much. I'm kind of like introverted at heart, but whether I'm like going through something hard or I'm just like really tired or exhausted, like my first default is to isolate myself. And I know that that's like not always the best thing. And I do think we need time for ourselves, right? Like to sit with God, reflect, do all those things. But if it's like too much of anything can be bad, right? So just trying to be more mindful of like, okay, let me not let my first default to be to isolate myself. Like maybe I do need to be around people that care about me right now or, you know, are going to make me laugh or feel good. So that's kind of been something that I've been working through. So my next question for you guys is it as simple as fixing a habit or is there a root issue that needs to be addressed usually?
Mine's definitely a root issue.
Okay.
It's like a people pleasing issue.
Yeah.
And having to remind myself that my worth isn't in the things that I do for people, but just in who Christ has called me to be. And so I think that's a constant reminder that I'm having to go through and a constant study that God's having to show me. But mine lies heavier on the people pleasing than it does just on the I'm saying yes to things.
That's so good.
Yeah. I think mine's also like a root thing because like I'm kind of like insecure about myself. And so it's kind of hard because like Kendra was saying, like the people pleasing and stuff, like I sometimes care more about what other people think of me than of what God thinks of me, which is like, I saw this video the other day and it was like how like God was literally perfect. Like Jesus was literally perfect and people still hated him. So it's like, even though I'm not perfect, not everyone's going to like me, which is kind of like a hard thing that I have to like accept for myself. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Totally. What about you, Rylee?
I'm trying to think. Not only in 8th grade. My brain's not on the root thing right now.
That's okay. That's
not really
totally okay.
learning these big old words you guys are saying.
No, it's okay. Hey, man, I love that honesty. It's okay. So would you say, like, for you, like, the habits that you need to fix, do you feel like it's more just, like, trying to break the habit? Like, you just kind of need to, like, pep talk yourself through it? Like, just be a little hard with yourself?
Yeah, because sometimes I forget.
Okay.
And then it just starts back over.
Yeah.
Like, I was having a talk with my parents about an addiction I was having. And they're like, if you do it again, it's just going to start back over. But the more you stop yourself and the more you get help from God, it's just going to keep getting easier and easier until it just stops.
That's
but
really
if you
good.
keep going with it, or if you keep doing it, if you're on the right track and then you do it once, it starts all the way back over.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You're in 8th grade and you're saying some pretty fire stuff right now. So
Yeah.
I'm not
deep
sure.
stuff.
You're selling yourself short a little bit. So I'm just kidding. But no, that's really good. I like what you said. Because I would definitely say that like every habit to a degree does have a root, whether it's big or small, right? Because like the more we do things and they become so natural, like it will create a root that's just inside of you. So it's kind of like what you were saying about how like if you do it again, like, you know, like kind of like your hunger for that thing will grow and it'll keep growing. So the way I see it is like, let's say you have like, I don't know, like a leaf or something, like a plant with leaves on it, and it had an infection. So if you were to go and just try to cut the leaf off that was infected, like it would probably still grow bad. So the thing is, like, you have to go actually under and you have to cut the root so that it would actually not keep growing, like keep feeding that thing. So I would definitely say that, yeah, like most habits, they're pretty deeply rooted in us. And going to that root and like trying to cut that root out is not always going to be the easiest thing. Like that's probably going to be the uncomfortable part. And I think that's why it's such an important thing to like bring God into those moments, because he's ultimately the one that has the power to really cut those roots and not just take the roots out, but like replace them with life-giving things, with good things and good habits, and change our desires overall. So I don't know. I really loved what you guys all said. Do you have any final thoughts, or if you feel like anyone watching is kind of having trouble breaking habits, what would be your encouragement to them, like their first step?
I would say definitely like either open up to like a leader that you're like you trust, because like my leader, I trust her with so much stuff. Like whenever anything's going on, like I talk to her, and I think just like saying whatever is going on to someone is going to help a lot, so it doesn't like eat you alive. Like that's because if you don't say something, that's what the devil's going to use against you.
So true.
So I think just opening up to someone that you can trust is a good thing, and it's a really helpful thing. So
no, I love that.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about opening up to someone you can trust and being like careful that you're not just opening up to anybody.
Yeah.
But it's someone that you know is going to give you like the proper response and is going to love and comfort you and point you back to God. Ultimately, it's really good.
That's solid. Yeah, I definitely would say, like you were saying, Sarah, go to God with it. Don't feel like you're fighting this battle alone. Like God understands the struggles that we have. He understands the strongholds that are in our lives. So going to God in deep prayer and just saying, I need you to change my desires, right? I need you to fix my eyes on the desires of your heart so that I can constantly seek after that. And you'd be surprised how he just shows up, right? The things that you used to want after, you no longer want after. You start seeking things that are pleasing to God.
That's so true. I love that. I love that so much. What about you, Rylee?
So pretty much what she was saying, go to someone you trust. Like for me, since I'm younger, I mostly go to my parents and my leader, Pastor Robert. So just, and like older people, like they can go to friends and bosses that they might trust.
Yeah.
And there's always someone there to help you.
That's
and
so
if
true.
there's not, there's always God.
Yeah, that's so good. And it goes back to just kind of like the design that God had for us to be in community and to, carry each other's burdens. And it's like, that's kind of been what this whole thing of like me isolating myself, that's what I've been learning of like, we really can't do things alone. Like we need people as much as we think that we don't. And as much as we feel like we've been hurt by so many people, like there are people out there, like you said, Rylee, that do want to help you and that are willing if we let them. So to kind of wrap up, I love what all you guys said. I'm going to read this verse from 1 John. It's 1 John chapter 1, verse 9, and it says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all our unrighteousness. That's just such good news. And it kind of goes into that step of like just telling someone, like that can be the first step. Just opening your mouth has so much power. And like you said, the enemy wants to keep you silent and he wants you to keep it all to yourself because you're going to suffer that way more, right?
Yeah.
And so just taking that first step of just saying it out loud and knowing that, regardless of that habit you're trying to break, like God is going to forgive you and his grace is enough. And what Jesus did on the cross to save us is always going to save us. So really great. I appreciate you guys being on this episode. Everything you had to say was just so amazing. Getting to hear your guys' perspectives, Rylee and Lily, just from like a younger standpoint and just seeing how like all of this matters to all of us, no matter what age we're in, no matter what walk of life we're doing. So thank you guys for watching. That is the end of episode 2 of Spring Cleaning. So be sure to tune in next week for episode 3. We're going to be talking about relationships and what it means to sort through the boxes of our relationships. Thank you guys. God bless and see you next week.